Hi everybody, thanks for joining me again. In this video I wanted to talk a little bit about common sense, which is a phrase which has become a lot more common in political discourse, and I wanted to look, I guess, at some of the reasons for that.
A man is a man and a woman is a woman. That's just common sense.
The UK Prime Minister.
By the way, we're people of common sense. You know, we're conservative, I guess, and all right. But what we really are is, because this is what being conservative, I think, is, they're people of common sense. We want borders, we want fair elections, we want low interest rates, we want strong military, we want low taxes. We gave you the biggest tax decrease ever. No, we're people of common sense. We want voter ID, right? Can you imagine? They don't want voter ID. Why does somebody not want voter ID? Because they want to cheat.
A longer-term plan.
Well, to be honest with you, Ben Habib and Richard Tice speak complete sense to me.
Yeah.
They speak complete sense to me, and I feel like they're speaking to people like me, working public, you know, commonsensical. None of this kind of rhetoric that we get from someone like Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, what does he say? All I hear is blah, 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 blah. I can't hear what he's saying.
Right, this is the Common Sense podcast with obviously Joey Barton. My guest today is Lawrence Fox. Lawrence, thank you for coming up. I'm obviously delighted to have you here. Many things we can talk about, and no doubt we will over the next couple of hours. But again, you know, for me, I would know you from being an actor. I've done a bit of research, so see that you come from a long line of thespians and you know, an acting dynasty. And you know, for me, I would know you better for the kind of stances you've taken in terms of, you know, freedom of speech and certainly, you know, the Blade Runners and the kind of resistance from that.
A man is a man and a woman is a woman.
So here we have starting off with the UK Prime Minister. Common sense. These are all common sense issues that they say that they're talking about. Common sense issues such as the transgender issue or voter ID for Donald Trump. These aren't issues that are common sense issues. You're being invited to not think about anything from a position of understanding, but instead just rely on common sense, the things that you can determine about a subject without really having to think about it at all. And if you think that there aren't more complicated issues related to trans healthcare or voter ID or any of the issues that these people are raising, then I don't know what to tell you. You shouldn't be engaging just at this surface level. I wasn't familiar with the work of Joey Barton beforehand, but he's a political commentator who is Joey Barton. He was a football manager, which is probably why I wasn't that familiar with his work. But yeah, I mean, besides the relationships with the many stories on his assault with his wife, I think he made comments on the fact that that women shouldn't have a place in commenting on sports, something like that. He's now interviewing people such as Lawrence Fox, who is Lawrence Fox? Lawrence Fox was somebody who went on social media and got into a lot of trouble for randomly calling people PDF files, and then tried to sue other people for defamation for calling him a racist. I think my understanding is that recently he lost a court case on that. Yeah, there we go. So he's losing his court case rows. These, not exactly great political minds of our generation, but certainly it seems that it is very common within particularly right-wing, almost exclusively right-wing politicians to start talking about common sense. And I think it's really interesting. I'm going to carry on with some examples here. Let's pop down to our next one. Let's hide Lawrence Fox, wherever he is. There he is. And let's see, this is the UK Parliament and the Minister for Common Sense.
Mr. Speaker, while speaking in Parliament in answer to questions on the NAO report into universal credit, I mistakenly said that the NAO had asked for the rollout of universal credit to continue at a faster rate and to be speeded up. In fact, the NAO did not say that, Mr. Speaker.
Apologies, I appear to have queued up the wrong clip there. This is a clip of Esther McVey apologising for misleading Parliament, which, in case you're not familiar with how the UK Parliament works, that means lying to Parliament, which it's called misleading because in Parliament you're not allowed to refer to each other as liars, despite the fact that some ministers and politicians are indeed liars. I can say that though. But that used to be important, but sadly it doesn't appear to be at the moment. Let's carry on with different clips. And that's...
Esther McVey is taking on the role of so-called Minister for Common Sense, but do we need one?
Well, yes, I'd agree with the question about whether we might need a Minister for Common Sense, but there we go. The UK appears to have appointed a Minister for Common Sense, and in case you're wondering what a Minister for Common Sense might do and why politicians might need somebody to be responsible for ensuring that they have common sense, we realise that common sense doesn't actually mean anything to do with common sense.
Is this music to your ears, Esther McVey's war on woke?
Yeah, absolutely. Hurrah for common sense.
Actually, what we're talking about is a minister for a war on wokeness. In case you're wondering what her remit might be, here we go. Let's have a further discussion. This time from GB News.
We were talking earlier to Ben Habib from Reform UK. He said diversity, equality, inclusion. That's the root of a lot of these problems because they're always put first. Diversity, whether it's because of your sexuality, so black people, ethnic. She's going to have to try. Can she reverse that trend now in government? Is that going to be part of her job? Well, to just be treated equally?
Well, she's, like you say, there's a big role. There's an awful lot of woke stuff, non-common sense that goes on in government. Her job is to do what she can to try and put a stop to some of the nonsense that we see, bring a bit of common sense back to things. That there's a...
So, in case you're wondering then what common sense means, it means the war on woke, of course. Don't think about it too much. It's just common sense. The war on woke is obviously what we need, and it doesn't warrant any thought. Just your quick, cursory, instant opinion is what you're being invited to consider.
I also have seen the reports in the paper describing me as the Minister of Common Sense, and I appreciate the concept as a difficult one to grasp for the members on the other side of the bench there. But I am committed to delivering common sense decisions such as delaying the ban on petrol and diesel cars, delaying the ban on oil and gas boilers, scrapping HS2, Birmingham to Manchester, reducing the overseas budget, all common sense policies that those on the opposite benches have voted against. This side of the House is full of common sense.
Okay, yeah, and the other side isn't. So the right wing is full of common sense and the left wing, or supposedly left wing, isn't. The more left wing, shall we say, than the Tory government. There we go, those are the issues. So it's common sense that we should remove any restrictions on the production of petrol and diesel engines in, I think it was 2035. I'd need to confirm the date. It's changed a little bit recently, and I'm not quite sure how it would align with this. But obviously, the removal of any future restrictions on petrol and diesel engines and restrictions on gas boilers, that is common sense. Don't think about it too much. It just is. There we go. So these are the kinds of issues that we're being invited to not think about and make our own minds up, because essentially we are invited not to engage with educated opinions on this, because we love lack of education.
We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. We're the smartest people. We're the most loyal people.
There we go. So, yeah. So an emphasis on the lack of education, and you might, those of you from the UK might be familiar with this guy and the statement that's about to be spoken. This is Michael Gove's famous statement on how we don't need experts. He argued this position around Brexit.
The chief exec of the NHS and most of the leaders of the trade unions in Britain all say that you, Boris and Nigel are wrong. Why should the public trust you over them?
I'm not asking the public to trust me. I'm asking the public to trust themselves. I'm asking the British public to take back control of our destiny from those organisations which are distant, unaccountable, elitist and don't have their own interests at heart.
Elitist.
Absolutely.
The Lord High Chancellor, conspiracy of elites. It sounds like something like Wolf Hall.
Well, I haven't seen Wolf Hall, but the one thing that I would say is that the people who are backing the Remain campaign are people who've done very well, thank you, out of the European Union, and the people increasingly, absolutely. The people who are arguing that we should get out are concerned to ensure that the working people of this country at last get a fair deal. I think the people in this country have had enough of experts with organisations from acronyms.
The people of this country have had enough of experts.
See, this was a position that Michael Gove adopted at the time and actually found traction on the right wing, saying that people have had enough of experts, and was a talking point that was repeated greatly. So I want to wind back, though, because I think the point at the beginning is actually quite central. The point where
chief exec
let's have a look,
of the NHS and most of the leaders of the trade unions in Britain all say that you, Boris and Nigel are wrong. Why should the public trust you over them?
So he's being asked about the experts in industry who are saying that actually they felt that Brexit would be damaging to industry, and the experts, I forget the other field, the NHS, that's our health services, saying that health services would experience issues with Brexit, both of which are positions that have been shown to have been true. But here he is, and this is the line that I think that obviously people picked up on the people have had enough of experts, but this line here...
I'm not asking the public to trust me, I'm asking the public to trust themselves.
There we go. I'm not asking the public to trust me, I'm asking them to trust themselves. In what sense do the public have any kind of handle on international trade relationships and how they might be impacted by the sudden removal of the UK from all of our trade partnerships that we had negotiated through the EU? How is the average person to determine that? They're to determine it by common sense. I'm asking them to trust themselves. I'm asking them to trust themselves about issues to which they can't be expected to be educated enough on. I'm not educated enough on these international issues to be able to talk authoritatively on them. I don't have that background, which means that if I want to talk authoritatively on them, I need to engage with the experts. And again, that is something that Michael Gove doesn't want us to do. And we'll find... I've played a few clips, but there are endless stories about conservatism and its association with common sense. This article, which I found late in my researching for this particular piece, this is an excellent article. I strongly recommend it, by the New Statesman, talking about the association of conservatism. But you will find statements throughout, particularly right-wing discourse. It's strongly associated with right-wing discourse, the association of common sense being the basis for their principles. Here we go. This is the Common Sense Caucus, which is something in American politics. Their group of politicians, the Common Sense Caucus. We have the Common Sense Tsar in the UK, the Common Sense the Minister for Common Sense, Conservatives in the Chamber, New York City's Common Sense Caucus. So plenty of associations with common sense. With the right wing. So, so this common sense, all it really seems to mean is that they want to keep us from engaging properly with proper discourse. They want us to trust themselves, and we saw this in the J.K. Rowling video. I had a look at the J.K. Rowling video, I think it was yesterday, and we talked about the idea that the viewer was being invited to discuss what they thought of these bigoted opinions. And the fact that this high school student was invited to just pick from the tweets that they could find from J.K. Rowling, and they weren't invited to engage properly with the ideas. They were invited to think about how they felt about it instantly themselves and base their opinion immediately from that, without research, without depth of opinion, very surface level analysis. And this is very much what's going on, where we're being invited to think about things as just being common sense. And there are many situations where things just being common sense isn't enough. Plenty of people think that they're good at things, that they have enough skills, where clearly they're not. And as somebody who's worked in the design field for a period of time, you'll realize that just because graphic design is your passion and you like word art and you know what you like, everybody seems to think that they can design, when really there are plenty of examples of when people really should have hired a professional designer rather than trying to do the designs themselves. Yeah, plenty of examples where people should have had somebody design their logo for them, because you can't put the fun in funeral design by using the Disney typeface. You know, people should have a designer. Then maybe they wouldn't be saying that they're grinding up Troy and putting them into their burgers, or offering to donate to help a human trafficking organization. There are plenty of examples, and examples such as the example of J.K. Rowling and the discussions on transgender care are a good example of this, a really good example. It is really easy to think that you have enough, that your opinion is enough, that your common sense opinion, you just know it. But actually, the issue of transgender health is actually quite complicated, and there are organizations who have spent large amounts of time. Each member is a well-studied member. Issues of transgenderism incorporate things like people's gender identity is determined by the wash of hormones that they get when they are in the womb, how their hormones affect them through their life. Issues of intersexuality, how influence people's gender identity. It's an issue of neurobiology, or at least potentially issues of neurobiology. There's a lot that goes into determining the gender identity that you end up with, and it might be psychological, biological, neurobiological. There's lots of different factors, and that's why all of these specialists, they get together, they conduct research. I think they have a document called, I looked at this website. This is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. They are the leading international body, and they have guidance that they've released with many names of well-established practitioners in the field. You'll see this is a long document that details the standards for care, and if you look at the references for it, you'll see many references at the end of the day. So look, we're maybe the last quarter is just the references of other documents that were used to create this, studies that show the data upon which the guidance is based. And if we're looking at the organizations that are supportive of affirmative care, transgender care, affirmative American health organizations. See from my spelling of organizations and from my accent that I'm not American. But let's look. The vast majority of organizations across America. I mean, I picked America, but we can do this anywhere. In fact, the majority of conditions will have international organizations that bring together the largest organizations in the field. Feels like organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. These are all organizations that are supportive of affirmative care. It is vastly, by a vast margin, the adopted and supported recommended approach for healthcare in this field. So despite the fact that you might have opinions, you have to understand that the issues that Esther McVey raised and that Trump raised, and issues like these common sense issues, they're, regardless of whether you think that these are right or wrong, they're not common sense issues. They are issues where people should be engaging with experts. They are issues like the scrapping of HS2. Is it of a benefit, or is it not? Or is the destruction of land and biodiversity the most important point, or is the fact that the HS2, the high-speed 2 rail link, could reduce pollution or increase the capacity of public rail? Is that the most important point? These aren't common sense issues. They're not the kind of thing that anybody can go, well, yeah, I'm not going to think about it. It's just common sense. The phasing out of diesel cars, they're not just issues that you can expect the everyday person's common sense response to be the right response. They are complicated issues. And I think it's to everybody's detriment when we are being asked to Dunning-Kruger ourselves. Dunning-Kruger, the effect where people of lower confidence have more, who should have lower confidence, have higher confidence in their opinions. So a cognitive bias in which people with limited competence in a particular domain overestimate their abilities. So, I mean, I imagine a lot of people will have seen this, where we have experts who rightly have confidence in their opinions, and then people who know enough to realize that they're not experts, and so they don't have confidence in it. But then people who people of vastly low competence, people who don't know enough about something, who assume that they're right about something. This is a well-established effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect. We are being asked as reasonable people here in the middle, people who should be thinking, well, yes, actually, I don't know very much about this subject. We are being asked, rather than deferring to the experts over here, to just assume, to take common sense and to appear. And I think we lose a lot. We wish to be educated enough to know when we don't know enough about a subject, and that shouldn't be a position of shame. We shouldn't be dissuaded from engaging with experts on a subject. So be skeptical of those who wish to encourage you to make common sense decisions. Anybody using that kind of, it's just common sense, we can just decide this by common sense. You should be very skeptical of these people. That's it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found it useful.